While my ex was honeymooning with his new wife in the Maldives, I received 2 documents. One confirmed I was 8 weeks pregnant. The other froze his entire $200 million company. That was the moment I realized this divorce wasn't my loss. It was his downfall. The sun in Hawaii was so harsh, it felt like it could burn straight through your skin. Derek Carter lay back on a lounge chair by the beach, one arm wrapped around his beautiful newlywed, Luna Moore, as he took a leisurely sip of ice-cold champagne. Life had never felt more perfect. A thriving career, a stunning partner in his arms, and a pair of newborn twins, a boy and a girl, barely a month old. Then a courier approached and handed him an International Express envelope. Frowning slightly, Derek opened it. 2 sheets of paper slipped out and fluttered down. One was a pregnancy test report belonging to his ex, Serena Vanderbilt, 8 weeks along. The other was a court order stating that the company he had built with his own hands, valued at $200 million, had been completely frozen. Oh, 1. Serena, what are you dragging your feet for? Get to City Medical Center right now. This is huge news. Our Derek finally has an heir. On the phone, Marilyn Carter's voice was sharp and shrill with excitement, every word stabbing straight into my ears. I gripped my phone, stared at the overcast sky outside the window, and calmly replied with a single word. Okay. No accusations. No tears. 'Cause I'd always known this day would come. I had been with Derek for 3 years, and my belly never showed any sign of life. Marilyn went from subtle hints to open mockery, implying I was a hen that took up space but never laid eggs, that I was the one who ended the Carter bloodline. Derek always stood in front of me, his voice gentle. Mom, don't pressure Serena. We're still young. I used to believe that was love, strong enough to shield me from the world's cruelty. Until half a year ago, when I accidentally discovered that he'd rented an apartment for a girl named Luna, transferring her a large monthly allowance. That's when I finally understood. His so-called gentleness was just another disguise for cruelty. I didn't expose him. I stayed calm and quietly gathered evidence. I watched him claim overtime and stay out all night. I watched the messages on his phone with Luna grow more explicit by the day. I watched his bank statements, luxury items I could never bring myself to buy, appearing one by one on another woman. My heart died slowly through all that silent witnessing, freezing solid inch by inch. By the time I arrived at the hospital, laughter filled the VIP suite. Marilyn cradled a swaddled baby, her face creased with joy. Oh, my precious grandson, look at you, just like our Derek. Derek's father and several relatives crowded around another crib, showering the baby girl inside with praise, and Derek himself sat beside the bed, carefully feeding chicken soup to Luna, who looked pale but blissfully happy. The whole scene felt like a perfectly staged comedy, and I was the unnecessary, badly timed intruder. The moment they saw me, the laughter stopped. Marilyn walked over, still holding the baby, her gaze dripping with pride and disdain. Serena, take a look. These are our Derek's twins, a boy and a girl. Just because you couldn't have them doesn't mean no one else could. Luna is the real hero of this family. Derek hurried to his feet and came to my side, taking my hand. His face held a trace of apology and embarrassment. Serena, I'm sorry. I was going to find the right moment to tell you. Don't blame Mom, she just wanted grandchildren too badly. And Luna did a lot for us. I can't treat her unfairly. So, I pulled my hand free, my voice flat as still water. My calm clearly threw him off. He paused, then said, Serena, I know this hurts, but things are already like this. We have to deal with it. My mom's decided to give Luna the new Seaview Villa on the west side of the city so she and the kids can recover properly. Oh. I nodded, glancing at Luna's smug smile and Marilyn's openly provocative stare. That makes sense. She is a hero, after all. Marilyn clearly hadn't expected me to be so reasonable. Surprise flickered across her face before her usual superiority returned. At least you know your place. Serena, I won't beat around the bush. The kids are here now, and our family needs proper status. You should figure out what to do next. Mom! Derek scolded her half-heartedly, then turned to me, his tone soft again. Serena, don't listen to her. I won't forget our 3 years together. It's just, the kids need a complete home. Don't worry, I'll make it up to you. I'll give you $500,000. That's more than enough for No need. I cut him off and looked at the man I once loved, feeling only unfamiliarity and absurdity. Derek, let's end it. I don't want anything. I'll walk away with nothing. The room erupted in shock. Marilyn and Derek exchanged disbelieving looks as if checking whether they'd misheard. In their minds, I should have cried, screamed, threatened, anything, clung desperately to my place and refused to let go. My clean break made it feel unreal. You mean it? Derek asked cautiously. Yes. I met his eyes. Tomorrow morning at 9. Outside the marriage license office. I'll be there. With that, I didn't spare any of them another glance and turned to leave the nauseating hospital room. Behind me came a brief silence, followed by joy they could no longer suppress. As I walked down the long hospital corridor, the sharp clicks of my heels echoed against the floor. Each step sounded like a bell tolling for the foolish 3 years I'd wasted on that marriage. The next morning, I arrived at the county clerk's office 10 minutes early. When Derek showed up, Marilyn was right beside him, like she was afraid I'd changed my mind and had come personally to escort him. Seeing me actually waiting there, the joy on their faces was impossible to hide. Serena, it's really great that you finally come around, Marilyn said with fake warmth. Don't worry, even though you and my boy won't be together anymore, if you ever run into trouble, I'll still... No need. I remained calm as ever, pulled a prepared divorce agreement from my bag, and placed it in front of them. Just sign. Derek took the papers and flipped through them quickly. When he reached the property division section and saw that I had voluntarily waived all marital assets and chosen to leave with nothing, a flicker of complicated emotion crossed his face. Maybe guilt, maybe relief. In the end, it all settled into visible ease. He probably thought it was an incredible bargain, getting rid of his troublesome first partner with a house he never paid for and $500,000. What he didn't know was that the apartment we'd been living in had been bought in full by me before the marriage. I'd only put his name on it to protect his pride. What he knew even less was that the company he was so proud of had been launched with $20 million, every cent of it coming from my father's trust fund. I paved every road beneath his feet, yet he believed it was all due to his own talent and luck. The divorce process went unexpectedly smoothly. The clerk asked the routine question, whether we had both thought it through carefully. We both answered yes. When I held the divorce certificate in my hand, I felt lighter than I had in years, as if a heavy shackle had finally been removed. Serena, Derek said, holding his copy, as if he still wanted to say something. In the future, we each live our own lives. No contact, I said first. Then I turned and walked away without a trace of hesitation. Behind me, Marilyn snorted. Acting all high and mighty? Without my boy, let's see what kind of life she can live. I ignored her and took a cab back to that so-called home. There wasn't much to pack. Most of the things in that place had been bought by me anyway. I took only a few sets of clothes, some keepsakes my mother had left me, and, hidden deep in the study, the safe containing all the original investment agreements and property purchase contracts. Before leaving, I took one last look at the place I'd lived in for 3 years. Our wedding photo was still hanging in the living room. In it, I was smiling brightly, my eyes full of hope for the future. I walked over, took it down, and threw it straight into the trash. Derek, starting today, whatever we once had is over for good. I moved into a serviced apartment and dialed a number I knew by heart. Hey, bro. For the first time, my voice carried a hint of exhaustion and grievance. There was a brief silence on the other end before a steady, concerned voice replied. Serena, did you get hurt? I told you long ago, that guy was never good enough for you. Come home. I'll pick you up. I'm not coming back yet. I took a deep breath, my gaze turning firm again. There are still things I need to handle. The $200 million investment in Derek's company, wasn't that made under Wayblue Capital's name? Yes. Why? Bro, activate the performance trigger clause in the contract. I want him to end up with nothing. All right? He didn't ask for a reason, only unconditional support. Go all in. If the sky falls, I've got you. After hanging up, the last trace of heaviness in my chest finally disappeared. Derek, Marilyn, Luna. The victory you think you've won is nothing more than the opening act of a grand funeral I prepared just for you. Row 3. Life after the divorce was unusually peaceful. The first thing I did was get a full medical checkup. For 3 years, in the desperate hope of getting pregnant, I had taken countless folk remedies Marilyn brought me. My body had long been pushed to its limits. So when the doctor told me that prolonged use of medications with unknown ingredients had severely disrupted my hormones and that conceiving in the short term would be difficult, I wasn't surprised. I was only grateful that I hadn't ruined my entire life for a family like that. But fate has a twisted sense of humor. Just when I thought I was about to start over, a pregnancy report shattered all my plans. Abnormally high HCG levels. An ultrasound confirming an 8-week intrauterine pregnancy. The doctor smiled at me while holding the report. Congratulations, Ms. Vanderbilt. You're going to be a mom. In that moment, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This child had come at the worst possible time, yet felt like the most precious gift heaven could give. Instinctively, I placed my hand over my still flat belly, feeling the quiet presence of a new life. This was my child. Mine alone. No matter what, I would protect this baby. The pregnancy only made my plans firmer and more urgent. I contacted one of the top legal teams in the country and handed over every piece of evidence I had. Proof of Derek's infidelity during the relationship, recordings of Marilyn's long-term emotional abuse, and, most importantly, the investment agreement signed between Wayblue Capital and Derek's company, held in my brother's name, and loaded with extremely aggressive trigger clauses. After reviewing everything carefully, the lead attorney gave me a decisive answer. Ms. Vanderbilt, you can rest assured. This agreement is practically a textbook example of a commercial trap. Once activated, Derek won't just lose control of the company, he'll also take on massive personal liability. Everything he owns now will be wiped out. I nodded. Good. That's exactly the outcome I want. The Vanderbilt family may not be the most powerful name in New York, but we're far from insignificant. My father built his empire from nothing, and the kind of man he despises most is someone like Derek, ungrateful, opportunistic, climbing upward on a woman's back. Back then, when I insisted on being with Derek, hiding my background and even moving out, my father was furious. But in the end, he gave in. He set aside $200 million in a trust as my safety net and had my brother invest in Derek's company under a third-party firm. My father had said, Serena, you never truly know what's in a person's heart. That money is both your backup and his test. If he treats you right, it belongs to both of you. If he betrays you, the Vanderbilt family will make sure he falls from the clouds straight into the dirt overnight. His words became prophecy. I began arranging everything that would follow. The legal team prepared all necessary documents, waiting only for the perfect moment. At the same time, I planned for myself and for my child. I bought a spacious luxury apartment in the city center under my own name and prepared everything my baby would need. Only after leaving Derek did my life truly begin to feel vivid and alive. And on the other side, Derek and Luna's life was just as exciting. 04. Less than a month after the divorce, Derek couldn't wait to hold a lavish wedding with Luna. The ceremony was extravagant, so much so that they nearly booked out the most luxurious 5-star hotel in the entire city. Derek looked triumphant, his arm linked with Luna in her pure white wedding gown, accepting everyone's congratulations with pride. Marilyn was grinning from ear to ear, cradling her golden grandson as she paraded around the ballroom, boasting to anyone who would listen about how blessed her daughter-in-law was for giving the Carter family a pair of twins, a boy and a girl. I saw photos of the wedding through messages friends sent me. In the pictures, the way Derek looked at Luna was full of affection and satisfaction. He probably believed that dumping me, the barren, worn-out woman, and marrying a young, beautiful, fertile Luna meant he had finally reached the peak of his life. What they didn't know was that this so-called peak was nothing more than the final glow before plunging into the abyss. After the wedding, the two of them flew straight to Hawaii, kicking off a half-month-long luxury honeymoon. On Luna's social media, new photos appeared every day. Blue seas and clear skies. A private yacht. Candlelit dinners. Each image loudly proclaimed her happiness and her victory to the world. Derek was basking in overwhelming satisfaction as well. The company was booming and he had just secured a major new deal. If everything went smoothly, the company's valuation would at least double again. A beautiful partner in his arms. A son and a daughter. He felt like the ultimate winner in life. Occasionally, Serena would cross his mind, the woman who had always supported him quietly, never complaining. A faint, fleeting sense of guilt would surface, only to be quickly drowned out by the happiness right in front of him. He told himself it wasn't his fault. Serena couldn't have children. She couldn't fulfill his mother's wish to hold grandchildren. He'd given her $500,000. That was more than generous enough. Just as Derek believed his perfect life would last forever, an international priority document was delivered to the oceanfront villa where he was staying. The courier said the sender had made it clear. The envelope had to be handed directly to Mr. Derek Carter himself. Derek frowned slightly. Who would send him something so formal during his honeymoon? Luna leaned in curiously. Baby, what is it? Did something good happen back home again? No idea. Derek smiled and pinched her cheek. Probably good news from the company. Still relaxed, he opened the envelope. But the moment he saw what was printed on those 2 sheets of paper, the smile on his face froze completely. 05. The first page was an ultrasound report. It clearly showed a tiny gestational sac, and beside it the diagnosis read, intrauterine pregnancy, 8 weeks. And in the name field was a name that nearly stopped his blood cold. Serena Vanderbilt. How was that possible? How could she be pregnant? Derek's mind went blank. Before the divorce, they had undergone countless medical tests because of the pregnancy issue. Every single result pointed to Serena having difficulty conceiving. Marilyn had used that very reason to humiliate her over and over again. And now, this report was like a brutal slap across his face. 8 weeks. He calculated rapidly. 8 weeks ago, they hadn't divorced yet. This child was his. An overwhelming wave of regret and panic seized his heart. He had divorced his partner while she was carrying his child and married another woman. Baby, what's wrong? Why do you look so pale? Luna's voice snapped him out of his shock. She had seen the report too. Her expression changed instantly, a flash of resentment and panic in her eyes. That woman, how could she be pregnant? She must have done this on purpose. She's trying to trap you with a baby. But Derek could barely hear her anymore. His gaze fell on the second page. It was an official court notice from the New York Supreme Court, the bold red seal glaring painfully at his eyes. The notice was blunt and unmistakable. Due to the primary investor, Blue Capital, initiating an emergency risk control procedure, citing severe operational risks and material violations of the investment agreement by the legal representative, Derek Carter, the court had approved an application for asset preservation. Effective immediately, all corporate accounts of Chuan High Technologies, as well as all personal assets under Derek Carter's name, including bank accounts, stocks, real estate, and vehicles, were to be frozen. The total frozen assets were provisionally valued at $200 million US dollars. With a loud rush in his ears, Derek felt the world spin. Asset freeze? $200 million? How could this be happening? Blue Capital was the company's largest shareholder, the very foundation of his success. How could they suddenly turn on him? He reached for his phone, desperate to call the head of Blue, the executive who had always praised him, hoping to find out what had gone wrong. But before he could dial, his phone started ringing uncontrollably. It was the CFO, his voice shaking, on the verge of tears. Derek, something terrible has happened. All our accounts are frozen. Our partners have been notified and are demanding payment. The banks are calling in our loans. Our company is finished. That's impossible. Absolutely impossible. Derek roared into the phone. Tell them to hold on. I'm coming back right now. He hung up, his hands trembling so badly he could barely hold the phone. Luna was completely panicked. Baby, how could this happen? Isn't the company doing great? Didn't you say everything was going well? I don't know, Derek muttered, hollow-eyed. Serena's face flashed through his mind, her unnatural calm during the divorce, her decision to walk away with nothing. A horrifying thought slithered into his mind like a venomous snake. Was all of this her doing? Just as his thoughts spiraled, his phone rang again. An unfamiliar number. The caller ID showed New York. With shaking fingers, he answered. A cold, steady male voice came through, one he had never heard before, yet somehow felt disturbingly familiar. Derek, it's me, Julian Vanderbilt, from the Vanderbilt family. Derek froze. Julian? Serena's brother? Hadn't she said she was an orphan? Don't be surprised, the voice continued flatly. Let me formally introduce myself, the true owner of Blue Capital. There was no emotion in his tone. The empire beneath your feet was built by my sister Serena, using $200 million as her dowry to pave your way. A brief pause. Unfortunately, you disappointed her. The game is over, Derek. Welcome to hell. 06. The game is over. Welcome to hell. Julian's voice was like a blast of Arctic air, cutting through the phone line and freezing Derek solid from head to toe. The sun in Hawaii was blazing overhead, yet Derek felt as if he'd fallen into a bottomless abyss, his entire body icy cold, his limbs stiff and numb. Blue Capital. Serena's dowry. Julian. Fragments of information exploded in his mind, then snapped together into one complete, brutal truth. He had always believed he was a self-made business prodigy. He thought the head of Blue Capital was his mentor, his lucky break. In reality, from start to finish, he'd been nothing more than a ridiculous puppet on strings. His so-called success, everything he took pride in, had simply been a gift casually handed to him by Serena and the family behind her. And now, the ones who gave it were taking it all back. No, that's impossible. Serena, Derek's voice was dry and hoarse. He wanted to insist that Serena was just an orphan from an ordinary background, but Julian's icy tone made self-deception impossible. My sister erased her identity for you. She gave up a privileged life in New York and lived cramped with you in a second-tier city for 3 years, Julian said, his voice thick with undisguised contempt and anger. She gave you everything. And what did you give her in return? You let your foolish mother humiliate her nonstop. You cheated while she was pregnant. And for a mistress and a pair of illegitimate children, you forced her to walk away with nothing. Derek, you are the most disgusting and foolish man I've ever seen. Illegitimate? Derek latched onto the word. What do you mean? Exactly what it sounds like. Julian gave a cold laugh. Enjoy what's left of your vacation. Once you're back, there will be hundreds of lawyers waiting to discuss your $200 million personal liability. Oh, and one more thing. The villa you and Luna are living in is also part of the frozen assets. You'll need to move out. The call ended. Derek stood there in a daze as his phone slipped from his hand and fell onto the scorching sand. Luna was already pale with terror. She rushed over, grabbing his arm and screaming, "Baby!" What did he mean? What dowry? What $200 million in debt? Say something. Derek snapped back to reality and shoved her away violently, his eyes bloodshot with madness. Looking at Luna now, all he felt was revulsion. If it weren't for her pregnancy, would he have divorced Serena? Would he have ended up like this? He ran back to the villa like a man possessed and started making frantic calls. The vice president. Finance. The bank relationship manager. Every call was like a sledgehammer, smashing his last remaining hope. The company's accounts were frozen. The cash flow collapsed instantly. Partners turned hostile overnight, demanding payment. The banks triggered risk alerts, calling in all outstanding loans. Employees were panicking and preparing mass resignations. The business empire he'd built with his own hands was on the brink of collapse within just a few hours. How did this happen? How did it come to this? Derek collapsed onto the floor, despair filling his eyes. Serena's face surfaced in his mind, those eyes that had always been gentle, like water. He had thought she was a harmless little rabbit, something he could control at will. Only now did he understand. She wasn't a rabbit. She was a tiger that had kept its claws hidden. And once she moved, she tore straight for the throat. The honeymoon was over. Derek and Luna scrambled to book the earliest flight back. On the plane, Luna cried nonstop, questioning him, blaming him, accusing him of lying. Overwhelmed and agitated, Derek shouted at her for the first time, "Shut up. If it weren't for you, would things have turned out like this?" Luna froze for a second, then erupted into hysterical sobbing. Passengers throughout the cabin turned to stare. Derek felt utterly humiliated, wishing he could disappear into the floor. Only then did he realize that once the money and fake tenderness were stripped away, Luna was crude, aggressive, and impossible to reason with. He even began to wonder how he could have abandoned Serena for someone like this. When the plane landed, what awaited him wasn't an assistant or a private car, but a crowd of suppliers holding banners and unpaid employees shouting, "Derek, pay up. 07. Derek was surrounded at the airport and only managed to escape with security's help. He and Luna fled back home, only to find that the villa, once a symbol of their victory, had been sealed by the court. Marilyn was sitting on the front steps, hair disheveled, wailing uncontrollably. "My God, what is going on? How can they just seal our house like this?" When she saw Derek, she lunged toward him like she'd found a lifeline. "Son, you're back. Tell Mom what happened. Was it that bad luck woman? Was it Serena behind all this?" Mentally and physically exhausted, Derek finally broke under the combined pressure of his mother's screaming and Luna's accusations. He admitted it at last. He had lost. Completely. The only thought left in his mind was to find Serena and beg for forgiveness. He believed that if he humbled himself, if he pleaded with their 3 years together, and for the sake of the unborn child, she would soften. Using old connections, Derek struggled desperately and finally learned Serena's address. A luxury Riverview residence in the city center, Skyline 1. Standing outside the palace-like complex, he finally grasped how vast the gap between him and Serena truly was. Security stopped him at the gate, but he refused to leave and waited there stubbornly. Eventually, a familiar Bentley rolled out. Julian was driving. Serena sat in the back seat. "Serena." Derek rushed forward like a madman, blocking the car. The vehicle stopped smoothly, the window lowered, revealing Serena's refined, indifferent face. She was even more beautiful than before. Her belly was slightly rounded, her entire presence glowing with motherhood, yet the eyes looking at him were colder than ice. "Derek, you still dare come looking for my sister?" Julian stepped out, his tall frame blocking Derek, his gaze sharp as a blade. "Brother, let me talk to him," Serena said calmly. She got out of the car and stood before Derek, looking down at the utterly disgraced man. "What do you want?" "Serena, I was wrong. Truly wrong." Derek dropped to his knees with a thud, clutching her pant leg as tears streamed down his face. "Please forgive me. I lost my mind. I betrayed you. Give me one more chance. Let's remarry. The 3 of us can live properly together, okay?" "The 3 of us?" Serena let out a soft laugh, filled with mockery. "Derek, did you forget? You already have another family. You have twins. Who exactly is this performance for?" "No. I'm done with Luna. I have nothing to do with her anymore. And those kids." Desperate to distance himself, Derek spoke without thinking. At that moment, a taxi stopped nearby. Marilyn and Luna, holding a baby, rushed over. They had clearly followed him. "Serena, you vicious woman!" Marilyn screamed, reaching for Serena's hair. "You ruined my son's life. What more do you want?" Julian reacted instantly, shoving her aside. 2 well-trained bodyguards appeared out of nowhere, restraining Marilyn and Luna. "What are you doing? Let me go!" Marilyn shrieked. "Serena, don't think having money makes you special. You destroyed our family. You'll pay for this." Luna cried hysterically. "Derek, you heartless man. For her, You're even abandoning your own flesh and blood? Watching the chaos unfold, Serena felt only amusement. She looked down at Derek kneeling before her, pleading, and spoke slowly, clearly. Derek, listen carefully. First, this company was always mine. I'm simply taking back what belongs to me. Second, this child is mine. He has nothing to do with you. When he's born, he will carry the name Vanderbilt. Third, the moment you chose to betray me, the only thing left between us became a legal relationship. My lawyer will contact you regarding your personal debt. With that, she turned away and walked back toward the car. Serena, you can't do this to me. Derek roared, trying to rush forward, only to be pinned down by the bodyguards. For the sake of our unborn child, give me one chance. Serena paused, but didn't turn back. She left him with one cold sentence. You don't deserve to mention my child. Oh wait. Serena's decisiveness was like a razor-sharp blade, cutting away Derek's last illusion completely. He stood there, watching the Bentley carry away the woman who had once been his wife, and the future he could never reclaim, leaving behind nothing but him in utter wreckage. Back in the cramped apartment they were renting temporarily, Marilyn and Luna's screaming, sobbing, and fighting nearly tore the place apart. Marilyn cursed Luna as a jinx, accusing her of bringing nothing but disaster to the family instead of good fortune. Luna cried about her miserable fate, saying she thought she had married into wealth, only to end up buried in debt. Listening to their endless quarrels, Derek felt his head splitting open. Julian's words kept echoing in his mind. Bastards. At first he thought it was nothing more than an insult spoken in anger, but now the word took root in his heart like a curse. He stared at the newborn twins in Luna's arms, and the longer he looked, the more something felt off. They didn't look like him. They didn't look like Luna either. Before, he'd been so intoxicated by joy that he'd never questioned it. Now doubt crept in from every direction. A mad thought began to grow in his mind. Taking advantage of a moment when Luna wasn't paying attention, he quietly plucked a few strands of hair from each baby, then one from himself. He took them to the most authoritative paternity testing center he could find and paid extra for expedited results. The 2 days of waiting were pure hell. On one hand, he hoped the children were his, so he might still have a bargaining chip, some faint hope of begging Serena for mercy. On the other hand, he secretly hoped it was all a lie. He didn't want to pay such a crushing price for someone else's mistake. 2 days later, the report arrived. When he saw the final line, parent-child relationship excluded, his world collapsed all over again. Clutching the report, Derek stormed back home like an enraged beast. He slammed the papers into Luna's face, his eyes bloodshot as he roared. Talk! What the hell is going on? Whose children are these? The moment Luna saw the report, her face drained of all color. She knew it was over. Under Derek's relentless interrogation and Marilyn's slaps and curses, Luna finally broke down and sobbed out the truth. It turned out that while she was dating Derek, she'd also been involved with another wealthy businessman. When she got pregnant, she had no idea who the father was. After weighing her options, she decided Derek, young, capable, with a promising company, was the better bet. So she carefully set him up to believe the babies were his, used them to secure her position, and successfully forced Serena out. She thought she could rely on the children to live a life of luxury forever. She never imagined that Derek's business empire would be such a fragile house of cards. When the truth came out, Marilyn was so furious she fainted on the spot. Her precious, golden grandchildren, the bloodline of the Derek family she'd been so proud of. In the end, they turned out to be 2 bastards of unknown origin. To her, that blow was even more devastating than losing all her money. Derek, meanwhile, seemed to have all the strength drained from his body. He collapsed onto the floor and burst out laughing until tears streamed down his face. He felt like the biggest joke alive. For 2 bastards, he had abandoned a wife who was carrying his real child. For a scheming woman, he had thrown away Serena, who had loved him with her whole heart. He had destroyed his own life with his own hands. He deserved it. 09. The farce ended even faster than Derek had expected. He kicked Luna and the 2 children out of the apartment without a trace of hesitation. What became of her? He didn't know. Maybe she went looking for that other businessman. Maybe she ended up on the streets. He no longer cared. His life was already nothing but ruins. After Marilyn woke up, she looked as though she'd aged 20 years overnight. Her mind grew muddled, and all she did every day was mutter about her golden grandchildren. Watching his mother's hair turn white in a single night, Derek felt no pity, only boundless disgust. If not for her pressure and vanity, he might never have walked this road of no return. The company's bankruptcy liquidation moved quickly. Since all the startup capital had come from Serena's trust fund, every asset, patents, equipment, client resources, was ultimately acquired legally by Blue Investment at a rock-bottom price. As for Derek, as the legal representative, he was saddled with nearly $50 million in personal joint liability debt resulting from the bankruptcy. Overnight, the once brilliant young man worth $200 million became a penniless debtor drowning in liabilities. His properties and cars were auctioned off. The balance in his bank accounts was wiped clean. He was forced to move out of the tiny rental and into an even cheaper, darker basement. He tried to find work, but his reputation for being ungrateful and cheating during marriage had already spread throughout the industry. No company dared to hire him. All he could do was the most grueling manual labor, hauling bricks at construction sites, washing dishes in restaurants. The Derek who once wore tailored suits now looked filthy and haggard, his face gaunt and lifeless. The crushing contrast left him in constant agony. Every sweat-soaked day, every sleepless night alone, he thought of Serena, of how good she had once been to him. He regretted it. He truly regretted everything. Countless times he wanted to go find her, even if only to look at her from afar. Finally, one afternoon, he got his chance. He saw Serena walk out of an office building dressed in a polished maternity business outfit, several assistants at her side. She spoke confidently with the people around her, radiant and full of authority. Sunlight fell over her, making her look as though she were glowing. That building had once been his company's headquarters. Now it bore the sign, Blue Technology. Serena had acquired his company and taken on the role of CEO herself. She was doing far better than he ever had. Stronger. More decisive. Hiding in a corner, Derek watched the figure who felt both familiar and utterly distant, tears streaming down his face. He knew he had lost her forever. Between them lay a chasm that could never be crossed. He didn't even dare step forward, afraid that his fallen, miserable state would stain her eyes. There was no hope left in his life. All that remained was endless regret, and debts he could never fully repay. This was the price of betraying love. The price of betraying marriage. 10 months of pregnancy, and then, in a single moment, new life. The following spring, Serena safely gave birth to a baby girl and named her Chloe Vanderbilt. The child's delicate features looked just like Serena's, beautiful and irresistibly sweet. The entire Vanderbilt family was overjoyed by the arrival of their little princess. Serena's father, and Julian especially, spoiled her beyond measure. With her daughter's birth, Serena's life became even more complete and fulfilling. She was an exceptional mother and a highly successful businesswoman. Under her leadership, Blue Technology flourished. With her sharp business instincts and the powerful backing of the Vanderbilt family, she tripled the company's market value in just 1 year, rising as a dark horse no one in the industry could afford to ignore. She never saw Derek again. Only occasionally did she hear fragments of news about him from old acquaintances. They said he changed jobs countless times, never lasting long at any of them. They said he was still scrambling to pay off the $50 million in debt, living like a hunted rat. They said his mother, Marilyn, unable to withstand the blow, had suffered a mental breakdown and been sent to a psychiatric hospital. None of it stirred any emotion in Serena anymore. That man, that marriage! To her, it was nothing more than a nightmare she'd once had, gone the moment she woke up. She was grateful for the experience. It had shown her the true nature of people and made her stronger and more independent. On a bright, sunlit afternoon, Serena stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of Blue Technology's top-floor office, holding her daughter, who had just begun to babble. She looked out over the city she had built with her own hands. Chloe, look, she said gently, pointing at the streams of traffic below. The world is big, and it's complicated. One day, you'll meet many people and face many things. But remember this, never depend on anyone. Use your own strength to create a future that truly belongs to you. Mommy will always be by your side, protecting you and supporting you. In her arms, little Chloe seemed to understand. She waved her tiny hands and let out a string of giggles. Serena laughed too, bright, free, and at peace. She knew that the future awaiting her and her daughter would be filled with light. All the shadows of the past had already been completely dispelled by the warmth of this sun.